Hello, welcome to Montreal, the Ile Notre Dame, and to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the Canadian Grand Prix qualifying notebook. And you've got to guess about what all these people are looking at and who they're waiting for. Well, there's a very, very easy answer, because the man of the day, the star of the moment, the undisputed king of qualifying so far, because he's equaled Ayrton Senna's record of 65 pole positions. Heaven knows, after they've given him, Senna family's given him that helmet, what he's going to get when he betters it, the next pole position he gets. And heaven knows what's going to happen when he betters Michael Schumacher's record of 68 and actually gets 69 pole positions to become the record holder of pole positions in Formula One of all time, because that will be quite an accolade. And really, when you consider that Lewis is probably naturally, the fastest driver out there, quite apt, I think you can say. Whether you're a fan of Lewis or whether you're not, you have to admire his natural, innate, blinding speed. And we saw it today, not only over one lap, but over two, which he said were near enough to perfection as it gets. Close to perfection. Do you know what I thought was particularly apt about the Senna helmet? Let's just have to get a detail. Can you see what it says on the back, Pete? Get a detail of what it says on the back. I'm interested. I can't read it from here. My failing eyesight is so bad. 1987, oh yeah, so it's just detailing that it was from the Lotus Honda in 1987. Is that Senna always prioritized, or rather put importance onto qualifying as a measure of a driver's quality, almost more than the race, didn't he? He was always very proud of his record of that magic number of 65 pole positions. And it was Senna himself who thought, it matters how you are in pole position, because that's the ultimate test, isn't it, when everything else is equal, of how fast a racing driver you are. And I think today certainly Hamilton feels the same. You'd have to think that many in this paddock do as well. So he's just cooling off with his tail there, his towel tail. But yeah, so not a dry eye in the house there was when he actually was presented with that crash helmet and cradling it in a very sort of touching way, coming back to here to see what he's doing. It was a 1:11.4 for Hamilton for pole, whereas Bottas in the other Mercedes did a 1:12.1. Ouch, so 7/10 is Hamilton's margin. Just how expert he is round here and his abilities round here that he got out of the car compared to Valtteri Bottas, who's not too shabby around here himself. So Monaco, you'd have to say, is a distant memory now for the team. They've sorted themselves. We're all out here doing our pieces to camera. Fox Sports here. He never takes his glasses off, interestingly, this chap. Maybe I should try that. They are quite cool glasses, aren't they? He always does pieces to camera with sunglasses on. So you're right, Pete. Somebody's fiddling with your radio. You want to show something? Everything's all right? What's going on?
I'm just changing his walkie battery,
right.
Ted.
Okay, good. It's nice to do this in the middle of the notebook. Anyway, right, so Monaco seems to be... everything all right now, Pete? Yeah, good. That was a touching moment, wasn't it?
It was. He said he wished he know how to speak Portuguese to say thanks to us. So.
Did you tell him how to say it in Portuguese?
He already knows that.
Okay. It's my Brazilian colleague there, so yeah, she works for Brazilian radio. So I know that they'll like that back in Brazil. Yeah, they've fixed the issues of Monaco. I mean, they knew, with the tyre performance around here and the demands, that it wasn't actually going to be the same problem as they had in Monaco, but still. They have done an awful lot of work, a lot of simulator work as well. Should I stay here, Pete, and you can position yourself there? Oh, I know what you're doing. Sorry, just has to get. Yeah, they've done a lot of simulator work after Monaco. Hundreds and hundreds of laps in the Mercedes simulator to actually go through and understand what happened in Monaco, even though this year's Monaco Grand Prix is a long and distant memory now. But they don't like losing, Mercedes, and they wanted to understand it, and they do understand it. And part of those learnings, as I say, even though it's a very different circuit, different demands, have helped them to pole position here today. Here he comes. You can see the chaos and the attention. Oh no, he's just going back into the just checking the oil reflection he's going to come out to the adulation of the team and the public. People are going to want little photos, and Lewis is in such a good mood, I don't think he's going to say no to any of them. You can probably just let him go, Pete, otherwise you're going to end up either tripping over or you can follow him out. Lewis, sort of following up what we were saying in the piece, that this car doesn't work everywhere. You can see him down here. What he was following up in the VT piece we did before qualifying, saying that this car doesn't work everywhere, and that's absolutely true. We've seen that demonstrably, and that's why it's so difficult. And I thought the other interesting thing he said, two other interesting things. He said that I'm so happy at the moment because the team is so happy and united. Now I don't want to, liken this to, all right, well, what was happening last year? Where was last year? Well, Nico Rosberg was there and they didn't get on. But that seems to be what the inference that we can take away from it, that relationship between Hamilton and Rosberg had grown so sour. It wasn't actually a very nice place to be at the moment. And contrasting now that Bottas is there, and they've spoken about how he's, a breath of fresh air just because there's been a change. Not saying that, Nico Rosberg wasn't a nice person to have around, because of course he is. It's just a better place, a better team ethic to be situation at the moment. And the team is so happy and united. And Hamilton also calling it, this one, the most difficult season of his career so far, which, wow, when you consider 2008 and even 2007, it's that's quite interesting. 2007, yeah, with Alonso at McLaren. So I thought that was interesting. So Lewis just going through his lap there, and what a lap was with our colleagues on the other side. Anything else from Mercedes? No, I don't suppose there is. We shouldn't spoil their party by saying again that the conversion rate here is the lowest of the season. In historically, only 35.1% of pole positions here turn into a win. Well, Sebastian Vettel might win tomorrow. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, it's a very, very low conversion rate pole to win. But you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's not really the point, is it? So Lewis Hamilton first, Valtteri Bottas third. Red Bull, shall we do them as we go down here? It's all a bit mixed up in the paddock. We'll see who else we can find along our way. If there are some interesting people to talk to as they're sort of waiting for Lewis back here, but I'll do Red Bull quickly. And I guess not the most they could hope for, because they thought they were going to get fourth off Kimi Raikkonen. They might get Kimi Raikkonen, especially as he made a mistake, but they didn't quite. Max Verstappen, the faster of the two Red Bull drivers this weekend, as he has been in some other races recently as well. So Max fifth, Daniel Ricciardo sixth. Ricciardo had a problem with the brakes. There was an offset on the brakes, and when he was braking, he was feeling it was pulling to one side slightly. So they had the problem in Friday practice, and Ricciardo said that it came back in qualifying as well, but I don't know exactly how much time it cost him. There was only a tenth in it between Ricciardo and Max Verstappen, so otherwise it wasn't too bad. Sebastian Vettel doing what he often does here, which is paying a little visit to Red Bull Racing. I don't think he's after another job here. When you consider the performances of their packages at the moment, and long term as well, it's just something that he likes to do. But he always does it quite publicly. I think people have stopped reading things into it. It's just that he gets on well with Christian, he gets on well with old Helmut Marko there. Yeah, otherwise the new parts on the Red Bull are working pretty well. The front wing end plate is working well, and there's a brake duct on there as well. So we might as well do Sebastian Vettel while we're here. 3 runs Seb, and that really started when he made a mistake on his first run, locked up on the at the end in Q3, and locked up at the hairpin, came in, changed tyres, and had the time to do 3 runs. First time anyone's done 3 runs in Q3 for an awful long time. But it worked for him, he was saying in the press conference. It was a good lap, he said, but not good enough. Had to do 3 runs. I was confident that I could do it on the one hot lap, which I thought was interesting, because lots of other people were doing it on the second or third lap to actually get the tyres into the zone. I'll watch your back, Pete, don't you worry. Yeah, Seb was confident that he could do it on the one hot lap, which of course he did every time. Lewis is probably going to a sponsor. Yes, he is. He's going to the Paddock Club. That meant that he could do the 3 runs because it's a short lap round here. It doesn't take very long to get the car turned round and refueled, although good work by the Ferrari mechanics, and that allowed him to do it. As for Kimi Raikkonen, we're still on Ferrari, aren't we, weirdly, even though we're at Red Bull, but we're looking at... all right, Cyril? Yeah. Kimi Raikkonen messed up turn 1. He struggled a little bit more than Sebastian Vettel, but still managed to get P4 on the grid. There is a new barge board on the Ferrari and the new rear wing as well. It looks like Cyril Abiteboul, who I was just saying to, has just rather been stood up for a meeting. I think he was meant to go and meet perhaps with Christian Horner and has now just walked away. No, Helmut Marko, because Helmut Marko is now going into a private meeting with Sebastian Vettel. Intriguing. So they're all ready for the boat race. Pete, if you come back here, we've got the raft race later this afternoon, which you'll be able to see on our race show. So the quite interesting thing is that it's a team of 7. And here are the rules. Of course, you've got to have very strict rules, because otherwise you know what these teams are like, F1 teams. They're going to take the mickey somewhat. I like this. No rafts may be based on a canoe or boat hull or have a single smooth line design. Please build within the spirit of the event in mind. Ha! Good luck with that. Utilization of that secret America's Cup project file you have tucked away will be frowned upon. So you need to field it. Each raft has 7 people on it. There are 6 rowers and 1 cox sourced from your team. The 7, ideally, one of the 7 ideally will be the team principal. It doesn't make any mention of the drivers. So I think hopefully some teams are going to put a driver in there. The other 6 can be anyone, operational or non-operational, from the race weekend personnel. No debris whatsoever is to be left in the lake, quite right. Rubbing might be racing, but physical altercation will not be tolerated much. So each team gets 10 floats. There are those sort of square floats to build their raft from, pallets to actually get some sort of structure, some rope, paddles, although you have to build the paddles, a megaphone, which will be amusing, and some light vests. The FIA actually get involved there, the raft team briefing, and they've got 45 minutes between 6 p.m. and 6:45 to actually build your raft, and then the race starts dead on 7 p.m. So that should be amusing. Christian Horner says he is definitely going to go and do that. We'll see how many other teams actually join in. Christian Horner also said something interesting about a new team, about some of his personnel at Milton Keynes had been tapped up or asked whether they were interested in joining a new Formula One team project. And I asked Ross Brawn about this. I said, have you been approached by his Formula One group for somebody wanting a new entry? And he said there have been a few, what he sort of suggested were speculative approaches, but he said nothing concrete and nothing proper at the moment, he seemed to suggest. So I thought that was intriguing. So if you do hear some rumours of a new team coming along, then it seems to be starting with personnel, if not some sort of solid application to the FIA or FOM to actually join Formula One. The fact that no one was around there to buy up the Manor entry and their assets suggests that maybe it's not all that serious, but we will see. Right, Force India, hello, how are you?
Good, mate.
All right, well, they are not bad, because Sergio Perez was 8th today and Esteban Ocon 9th. Ocon didn't manage to pit Perez in the end, but it's not too bad. And now there's an interesting man, Carlos Slim Jr., Pete, here in the blue shirt, are the friend of the notebook and son of the richest man in the world, or one of them at least, because Perez's future is one of the hot topics of the paddock at the moment, because now is the time to be doing the deals. Now is the time for Sergio. He believes his stock is extremely high, and it now is the time to trade on that stock and actually try and get himself a race-winning and championship-winning car to get into. Is that a Ferrari? We will see. There are commercial considerations in place, and that man is absolutely key to it. But he's in Force India at the moment, is Sergio Perez, but for how much longer, who knows? Right, let's do one more team before we take a break, and hopefully that team is going to be Williams, or are they further down? No, this is Pirelli. I told you it was mixed up. All right, listen, let's take a break now, and we'll do Williams in a sec. More Notebook later. Hello, welcome back to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Nice day for a little poodle in one of those little tourist boats on the old rowing lake here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and to the qualifying notebook for the Canadian Grand Prix. Right, Williams. Now, a little secret, if you come here, this is where they keep the Magnums. All right, and yep, they've even got the old Framboise ones, which are interesting. Tried them yesterday. Not brilliant for them because Lance Stroll was 10 places behind Felipe Massa. Good effort for Felipe Massa, 7th on the grid, and he can do some good things from there. And oh, here's Claire. Hello, you're right. I was just saying, good from, we're on, by the way. Good effort from Felipe Massa. Stop me if I'm getting any of this wrong.
The wrong time, didn't I, Ted?
What?
I only was going to get a Magnum.
Well, we've just outed you where your Magnum supply is, I'm afraid.
I know, I haven't had one for like 2 years, and now I'm pregnant. It's all I want.
Have you tried the framboise or the raspberry one?
No, I stick to the almond.
Oh, right,
They're
okay.
delicious. Do you recommend the
Is
framboise?
it almond or almond? I've always wondered that. Almond.
Almond.
Is it almond?
I don't know. I think you can say either way. I don't think anyone's going to mind, Ted.
Either. You can say it either way.
But I think you should probably call it raspberry rather than framboise.
Yeah, that was. Did you like that? That was very local of me.
It was, wasn't it? You're getting into the Canadian spirit. Well done.
Let's talk about your cars. And Lance, difficult weekend, a little bit disappointed. Third race running, he didn't manage to get out of Q1, but was done by the Wehrlein spin. Without that, do you think he would have got out of Q1?
I would like to have thought so. You know, he's had such a good week, and he's been so excited about coming to his home track. And you know, we all know that he's had a difficult run. He's had lots of bad luck, some mechanical issues, and I think we all just really hope that he could have got out of Q1 today. But it wasn't meant to be. But it's all about tomorrow, isn't it? We're going to keep positive. He is, so we will, and just see what he can do in the race tomorrow. Just wouldn't it be lovely if he got points in his home race, his first points in Formula One here in Canada? I don't know. It's going to be tough, right? But our car is suited to a circuit like this. Felipe proved that today. Felipe did a fantastic job for us today, as usual. Did you write
Good
that
effort.
in your little notebook?
Look, good effort.
Is that what you wrote? Like 10 on 10? Would you give him 10 on 10 today?
I don't give ratings because that's the devil's business. You always get. It's a very dangerous
We rate you when we watch you at home on the 10. Oh,
yeah, I don't want to hear it. Just the other thing I've got, Williams have taken the upgraded Mercedes Power Unit 2, not more peak power, but allows you to go a higher engine revs for more, so it gives you a better overall race time towards
a lap time, exactly. Yeah.
Race time towards,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So no, we're happy with that. Thank you, Mercedes, as always.
Thank you very much. We've got a few other more teams to do. Sorry to disrupt your Magnum getting. Right. McLaren. We've got to go over here for McLaren, and then we've got to go back to all the rest of them. And Stoffel Van Dorn 16th, disappointing, but he was also done by the Wehrlein yellow flags and have to back out of Q1 again. 1/10 more would have been into Q2, but he couldn't manage to get that. But Fernando Alonso is saying that it's effectively a pole position for him, because if you look at the old speed traps, then Alonso, in fact, both McLarens are at the bottom. Alonso's 3:16, and the top, Stroll, is actually 3:33, and that's worth it. Here you go. So Alonso 3:16 in the speed trap, and then Stroll 3:33. So that in lap time is about, well, it's at least 1.2 seconds. So think McLaren. So that's why Alonso was saying that it's like pole position, because he was only 1.2 seconds off Hamilton's quickest time in Q2, which is the session that he dropped out of. Eric's shooting me odd look. Hello. Everything all right? What? Except what I'm watching. It is the top speeds, yes. How did you know? How did you know I was looking at that?
Because I'm watching them as well, and
right.
I'm just crying on it. So I'm trying to look at it like this.
Yeah, they're much better. Much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, upside down. Okay.
Anyway.
It's a nice bit of cranberry there.
No. I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. Is it not yours? Oh, it's Aperol, not Aperol Spritz. They're drinking that at Williams next door.
This is what I need now. Yes.
What do you think? Hamilton will probably get the. I don't know why I'm asking you, just because you're clever and everything. Hamilton will probably get the record of most poles out of anybody, maybe even before the end of the season.
Which is great. I think it deserves it. So I think it's good to have this kind of commemoration for the great, with a Senna helmet, and if he has a new record, it's good for the other guys behind. It's a new record to beat.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. There were some other. Are you doing the raft race?
No, unfortunately I don't, but I will pop up to support them, yes.
Because you have got on your team the only Olympic silver medalist rower, Stallard, Tom Stallard. Are you going to get him to do it?
He's in charge.
Is he?
And yeah, he is. Yeah, of course he will be.
Yeah.
And if we can win something this year, let's try to win that.
Yeah. Good. Good. I'll go for it. Okay, but you're not the team principals. You're not going on.
No, I'm not going on. I would be a burden rather than something good for them. But I will be there to support them.
Good. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. We've got quite a gathering here of the good. I would like to get Nigel Roebuck's view on Hamilton and Senna and the record and everything, but they're talking to Danny Sullivan, and I don't want to be rude and interrupt their conversation, so I won't. Maybe we can. Maybe we'll pick up that some other time, but that would have been interesting, wouldn't it? Sorry, everyone, we can't do that. Right, yeah, so the other thing I didn't want to go into with Eric there was the split from Honda that everyone thinks is going ahead now. There seems to be a decision from the executive committee that they're going to sanction that and the loss of earnings from it. That's another way of reading what Fernando says, so he's going to be happy with where he's going to be next year, because that could mean that he's going to stay at McLaren because he knows it's going to be McLaren Mercedes next year and he'll be happy with that. Or does it mean that he's already going to go to Renault and he's going to be happy with that next year, because staying at McLaren Honda next year, if that happens, is something he's not going to be happy with. So yeah, it seems to be, the writing seems to be on the wall for McLaren and Honda version 2, and rather a shame that if it does turn out that way, that the last 3 years will have been what amounts to a massive waste of time ultimately and sadly, but we'll see if that happens. Right, Sauber, Marcus Ericsson 19th and Pascal Wehrlein 20th. I think they thought they might have been at the back of the grid anyway, just because they were having a very bad weekend pace-wise. There just wasn't any pace in the car at all. But then when Wehrlein went and took his rear wing off, spun and crashed at turn 1, caught the grass on the approach to turn 1, and took his rear wing off, then it was curtains for not only his qualifying but also his teammate Marcus Ericsson's qualifying as well, because he lost his time. He had to back off his final attempt because of his teammates' yellow flag. So a bad weekend. They can only go forwards from there, pending any penalties that we don't yet know about. Toro Rosso. And this is actually, there are a few angry heads in the engineer's office on the left-hand side, because Carlos Sainz is not happy at all. I think that's Danny Kvyat's girlfriend, is it not? Just sitting there outside, Ms. Piquet. And because Sainz is annoyed because he was giving a slipstream to Danny Kvyat on all of his attempts in Q1, and he never was returned the favour, and he said that was not fair. He said it was worth 4/10 to his teammate. Sainz said it was worth 4/10 to his teammate Kvyat, and yet he never got those 4/10 back when he was doing a run. Wasn't happy with Kvyat, wasn't happy with the team as well, and then he got a yellow flag as well to add insult to injury. He got a traffic. Was it yellow flag or traffic? Oh, one of the two. So that was why he only ended up 13th, whereas Danny Kvyat, even though he hit the wall and had a puncture, actually ends up 11th on the grid, pending any penalties that we don't yet know about. So Kvyat, as I say, hit the wall, got a puncture, and lucky to be just 11th. Could have been slipped down much further than that. But it seems to be a good car and a raceable car, and that was also a topic of what Ross Brawn, Sean Bratches and Chase Carey were talking about in the press conference the other day, about how the Ross Brawn is heading with technical department with Pat Simmons, Jason Somerville and some other people as well, to get a more raceable car for 2021 when these things are changed. But we'll see if that actually happens. Right, should we do Haas F1? Not Gene Haas, his Günther Steiner at the back, and sort of average day really, but an annoyed Romain Grosjean again. Grosjean 14th, Kevin Magnussen 18th. Kevin Magnussen's been up against it all day. He was then also disadvantaged, had to abandon his lap because of the Wehrlein yellows, but wasn't happy with the car, hasn't really been happy with the situation, and a difficult weekend. He hasn't been happy with the Giovinazzi getting his seat in, here he is, you've got Grosjean on the corner here, Pete, you found him. Wasn't particularly happy by inference that it's K-Mag that needs to give up his seat for Antonio Giovinazzi when he does quite a few FP1 sessions towards the end of the season. It hasn't happened yet, and if that brow looks furrowed on Romain Grosjean's face, then it should be, because he described it on the radio as unbelievable. There's just nothing in the car. Very difficult out there, no grip for Romain Grosjean, and it just seems to be on a circuit where braking stability is so important. That, of course, is the somewhat of an Achilles heel here at Haas Ferrari, that they were never really going to have such a happy weekend, which is unfortunate because it's sort of nearly close to almost a home race to them, for them. I think that's about it with that. Yeah, it is. Oh yeah, traffic also that Kevin Magnussen got and was annoyed about that with the team's placing of him in some traffic. And because we've got this strange layout here in the paddock, because Renault wanted 3 garages together, and Sauber were happy to split it into 3 places. We'll tell you about that tomorrow. I think I already said it in free practice. We finished with Renault, where Jolyon Palmer was 15th, and it was a good effort. He actually got lucky in Q1 because he was already down the road and doing his lap by the time the yellow flags came out, so he could have been disadvantaged and had his lap destroyed by Verline's yellow, but was down the road, so didn't. He got through, so it wasn't a casualty of that, and actually into Q2, so a little bit better, but slower than Nico Hülkenberg, which won't go down particularly well. Yeah, I was just going to see what the time was, actually, the difference between them. Well, I'll actually tell you about an interesting new sponsor Renault have got. You might have seen this on some of the more strange, or rather specialist websites. So Palmer, let me just tell you, his lap time is a 14.2. And Hülkenberg was a 13.2. Okay, so he's giving away a second to Hülkenberg. That will not go down well. But they have done a deal with a data security firm, have Renault. This is after a story that we did first, I should say, in the Notebook in Spain. Do you remember it, Pete, when I asked Cyril Abiteboul whether he'd been hacked? Well, I was going to ask him, but he was walking off. And it turned out they had been hacked in that big data hack that affected so many other companies and organizations around the world. And since then, they've teamed up with this new company, a sponsor, to actually sort all that out and beef up their data security. Right, that is about it. We are out of time. Thanks very much for watching. Join us for the Canadian Grand Prix, 5:30. 5:30. What time are we on air? Is it 5:30, Simon? Are we on air at 5:30 tomorrow? We are, yeah. 5:30, isn't it? Tomorrow, Canadian Grand Prix. Good. The Notebook, as professional as ever. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.
Enjoy Sky Sports F1 Live on all screens, on the go, and the best bits on demand.